Let's move on to looking at how to create links to the proper pages for these. We could see that under Courses, as well as having a title, we also have a URL. However, we also know that because this first badge here has no courses associated with it, we have nowhere to link to. We could also see that the URL for this particular badge is set to the URL for their profile. It wouldn't make much sense for them to click on this badge and go to their profile, so what we'll do is write a conditional statement. And that statement will say, if the URL for a badge is set to their profile URL, which we could find out up here, then don't display any links for putting out the badge name. However, if the URL for the badge is not set to their profile URL, then go ahead and output the links to the project and to the badge itself. Let's go ahead and write that now. We'll come in and right before the badge name, we'll say if, grab this to start us off, and change name to URL is equal to their profile URL, which we wrote out here earlier. Then go ahead and output the following. However, if that's not the case, then what we're going to do is display the badge name without any link around it, and no project name. We can then close our if statement and come back and check this. We could see that we actually ended up getting this wrong, and we want to say if this is not equal, then go ahead and display the information. So now that we have this, we can begin creating the links by coming in to the course, and along with the title, we'll also output the URL. So let's go ahead and copy the name of the course, give ourselves some space here, and then change this simply to URL. We could then come down and do the same thing below. However, instead of the title, we'll change this one to URL as well. When we come back into the browser now, we should be able to click on the name or the project and go to the right place. Now let's go ahead and look at how to put out the right information for their profile. The first thing we're going to want to get is their name and their picture. We could see that to do this, we'd get their name and then the Gravatar URL, which links to their picture. So let's come into our code, copy our example of how to get their name, come down inside of our post box for their profile information, and echo out their name. We can then come down and remove the static image we were using and replace this instead of the name with the Gravatar URL. We could test that and see that the information still looks the same and is right. Now we're going to come down and we're going to figure out how many badges and how many points they have. To get the badges, all we'll do is get this array number inside of the badges object. To do this, we'll come down into badges, copy what we had previously, except instead we'll change it to badges, and then use the simple PHP count function. And what this will do is count the number inside of the badges. So when we refresh it now, we should see that it says 227, which matches the number right here. Now for points, if we search for points on the page, we could see that it's its own object right here, and inside of that, we have the object for total. So let's come back in, paste in the code we pasted before, change this to points, and then instead of having an array next, we have another object inside of it. So we'll use the same format for getting the object information and say total. We could then come back and check, and we should see that their total points match what it says when we search for points. Now that we have all of this information set up, we can go ahead and hide our JSON profile. However, I find this information helpful when we're testing, so I'm going to show you an easy way to hide this for when it's in production and display it for when we want to do testing. Let's come back into our code, and first of all, I notice that we have to change most recent badges here to JSON feed. And then what we'll do is come back into our main project file here, and up at the top, we're going to create a global variable called display JSON and set this equal to true for now. Then we'll come down inside of our options page function and pull in this global variable of display JSON. Then, inside of our page wrapper, we could say if display JSON is equal to true, except we want this right before the post box, then go ahead and display this post box. Right after that post box, we'll go ahead and create our end if. Now when we come back into our browser, we should still see our JSON feed. However, when we come into our main plugin page and say display JSON false, we can see that it's no longer there. Just a little trick to help you during your development.